All right, everybody. Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to discuss checks and balances. Um, for some of us, this is going to feel like a review because we talked a lot about the powers of all of these three branches of government that we see here. So the first thing we're going to talk about and understand is that when they decided to create the Constitution, they were afraid of one of these groups from gaining too much power. So they separated all the power into three branches. All right, we know that it's the legislative, executive, and judicial. We just spent a whole bunch of time going through each branch. Now, within the Constitution, they gave each branch the power to check each other. And when we say check, I'm hoping that we think of to put a stop to or to stop someone. All right, very similar to a hockey check that we can see right here. Boom. And boom. You get the idea. So with this, we're able to see how in hockey they put a stop to someone. Now we want to think more of branches of government stopping other branches of government. Okay. So when we'll focus on one of these branches. We'll start with the executive branch, and we'll start with how they check the power of the legislative branch. All right. So in your organizer, you're going to have a thing that looks similar to this with arrows pointing from one branch to the next. So for the executive branch checking the legislative branch, you'll see an arrow pointing down like that. You're going to write in the ways that they check them. Again, some of this might seem like a review. The first way that the executive branch can check the power of the legislative branch is by vetoing bills. Congress can do all the work in creating the bill, but once it gets to the president's desk, it's ultimately their decision to pass that bill into law or to veto it and put a stop to it. And that's the way they can stop that power. The second way they can do it is to issue an executive order. We talked a lot about executive orders and saw some examples where the president can basically go beyond Congress and make things happen. The problems that they run into is funding, as well as the Supreme Court putting an end to it, similar to what we saw with the Biden vaccine mandate. Okay. For more information on executive order, you can look at this slideshow that I'm also going to post the link to, and you can watch that video. The next thing they do is promote their policy ideas. Okay, we talked a lot about public policy and how the president is super influential in making things happen in Congress and in the United States as a whole. With the To the Moon activity, we got to see how the president can easily manipulate and interact and influence all the different branches to help get their ideas that they campaigned on and make them a reality. Okay, so specifically, we saw State of the Union address, we saw the annual budget that they get to prepare. They appoint officials in their cabinet to help enforce the law, and then they appeal directly to the people. They hold rallies, go from city to city, and try to encourage members of our country to reach out to their representatives. Now, when we switch gears here, we're looking at how the executive branch checks the power of the judicial branch. All right. They nominate the judges that go into the judicial branch. That's a pretty big power, ultimately having the final say who goes in there. They also can grant pardons, which goes beyond the decisions made at the courts. So they can pardon people, criminals, whoever, as they see fit. So now we're going to switch to the legislative branch. The legislative branch holds a lot of power, as we know, and they can check the power of the other branches. So the way the legislative branch checks the power of the executive branch is by overriding those vetoes. If they have the numbers, they can just override a presidential veto, and that bill will become a law. They can approve or reject the nominations to the cabinet, to the judiciary, whatever. They have the ultimate say. Remember, the Senate is in charge of approving these people. So whoever the president picks, the Senate can ultimately say no or yes. They have oversight hearings where they can interact and investigate different things that the president has done and make decisions based on all of that. And here we see Jerry Conley and ICE Director Tom Homan speak out during the House oversight hearing on conditions in migrant facilities on the southern border. They can also, at the end, impeach or convict public officials, whether that be a Supreme Court justice or a president. They can impeach them in the House of Representatives after a short trial, and then they go to the Senate for that conviction, and they ultimately decide there. Okay, here you have Samuel Chase, you have Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump. They also approve and reject the national budget. So when the president proposes their budget, Congress has the ability to say yes or no to it. And oftentimes they come with a list of demands they want to see into the budget, and they have to negotiate from there, knowing that they ultimately have the final say on whether or not a budget goes through. If they don't, the government shuts down. Now, the legislative branch can check the power of the judicial branch, very similar to the way they can check the power of the executive branch. They approve or reject the nominations into the courts. They have the final say, the Senate does. They can also impeach and convict judges. Okay, like Samuel Chase, he was impeached, the only Supreme Court justice to be impeached. Now, if we look at the judicial branch, they basically have one power over the other two branches, but it's a very, very strong power. And that is the power of judicial review. So as we see, the judicial branch checks the power of the legislative branch by using judicial review and declaring their laws to be unconstitutional. We also see the judicial branch check the power of the executive branch by declaring their actions unconstitutional and putting an end to it. So ultimately, judicial review is their main power that they use over the other two. So this is just a short review of all the powers that we've learned about and how they stop the other branches from getting too much power. All right. So thank you for joining me today.